Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to The Book Refuge. Welcome to this video. We have some recommendations for you today. First up, I want to thank Hannah, who she got a few of us together to do a collab of BIPOC authors and romances to share. But first off, I'll just put out of the way who's like not in this list, but is on the list because I'm going to mention. I didn't put any of Kennedy Ryan's on here because again, I mean, she's my favorite author, BIPOC author, favorite Black author, favorite author, right? Like that's the thing. She doesn't need to be put on any list for me at all. She just is. And I'm very excited. I do have her upcoming release on my Kindle right now, and I'm edging myself really hard before I get to that one. But let's go ahead and dive into this, starting with a few that I don't think most of you will have heard about, although a couple of these you will have heard about them from me because I've been talking about this book a lot lately. So let's start off with High Sticking the Heart from Maria M. This author, I listened to her book through Must Love Audio, and I thought that this was a debut author with this one, but it turns out that this is just the first book under this pen name. She has another pen name called Marie Maravilla. Sorry if I butchered that. And it is like dark mafia romance or like dark romance. And Maria M's under that pen name is going to be like lighter rom-com-y romance. And this one was a hockey romance that was my favorite read in January, which was so exciting to me because this was just so cool. This had a badass Latina character who she is a like physical trainer, and she's doing I can't remember if it was what's the title? Recovery and like, she does something with the physical training for athletes, and she gets hired by this hockey team in Texas to do it. And her family is a bit wary of her doing this. They very much in their culture want to keep her close, have their nose in her business. And she loves her family, is a big, loud, and boisterous, but she definitely wants to disentangle things a little bit and be her own woman. And I loved how the author handled this because, you know, besides not knowing the culture that this author is writing from, she still made it very believable of that, you know, the woman wanting to strike out on her own, having a family that thinks they know is best for you, or they do want what's best for you, right? They're not trying to stifle you. They're just very protective. And so she is, you know, really feeling the chafing of that and wanting to be independent. And that means like she's not looking for any serious dating because she just doesn't want to be controlled by a man. And for her, that isn't even coming with any like extra like, you know, feminine hoorah, although there's nothing wrong with that. I just mean, I think we all know of examples in romances where that like rubs us the wrong way, how an author like places that, because it's like you're also writing a romance, so are you going to make it unbelievable then that she falls in love? But anyway, enough rambling about that. She gets a job working for this hockey team, and the night before she starts, she meets this guy at a bar. She calls him the cowboy, but she doesn't know that he is a hockey player, but she does realize that she's at a sports bar and that a lot of the guys there are probably athletes. She's not planning to go home with anyone, but this guy walks up to her and asks her to pretend to be his girlfriend, to get his ex-girlfriend to leave him alone. And at first, our heroine is like, dude, I'm not going to help you throw off a woman. Like, girls before, you know, chicks before dicks. I don't even know this girl, but I can tell you're like a jerk. However, while he's sitting by her, this ex-girlfriend walks up and she just starts tearing into this guy, degrading him. And this guy's just kind of like a little bit curling in on himself. It's not like he's cowering. It's not like he's weak, but he's also trying very hard to not be negative about his ex, which just fires up all these things about this in the heroine just all at once. Because first she was thinking a bit negatively about him, but now she sees what he was working with, and she just right away pretends to be his girlfriend, tells this bitch to go shove it, and just completely feels it for him. So I kind of like that because it's kind of the opposite of what we normally see, which is like the guy rescuing the girl from an ex And again, it's not like he needs rescuing, but as you get to know Dalton, is this hero's name, you'll see that he is a very sensitive man in that he very much respects women. He has a wonderful mom, and a lot of that just comes from, he is a very needy guy. I'm probably not explaining him so well. He's absolutely a golden retriever hero, okay? And he becomes obsessed with our heroine in the best of ways, we'll just say that. And so when, you know, they end up having like a good night together, but she doesn't give him her information, doesn't share anything with him because she's like, I'm not looking for anyone. This was a fun night tonight. They don't even sleep together. I think maybe they kiss, but she's like, dude, I just got here. I'm here for my job. It's not happening. But then she goes into work and discovers that he is the captain of this hockey team. And not only that, she almost gets fired the first day because there is tabloid pictures, paparazzi pictures of them together. And they end up having to pretend to be dating, only this is awkward because that ex-girlfriend is actually a sports reporter. And the owner of the team is Dalton's father, and he's very like protective over his son's time and attention, and he's a dick. So I spent way too long explaining the first book. I'm not going to explain all of the other ones like that, but because this was to me a new to me author, and I think this is a book a lot of you will love, I really wanted to push it. I listened to the audio for this one because it was from Must Love Audio, and it was amazing. And then another one that I listened to in the same way, but it was last year, is called Keepsake by Amy Oliveira. And I had never tried this author before. This one is an ex-fighter, though there is some fighting that still happens in this one. And this one actually has our heroine who was friends with the hero's younger sister. And this woman was in a pretty abusive relationship for a long time, and she has actually died. And she has 3 children. And she actually, instead of leaving her children to the care of her brother or her parents who are still alive, she left them to her friend. But a friend she doesn't know super well anymore. It's just it's strange to kind of set this up. But this friend is childless. I think she's 30. And she has always wanted children, and now she has 3, but she got them because her friend died, and also they're not hers, and she just wants to love them like so much, but also you know, she's not of their culture, she doesn't know them very well, but she does have money and a place to bring them to. And so those are good things, like those are things to have, right? But the grandparents of these grandchildren are very offended that their daughter didn't leave the care of her grandchildren to them. And there also is their father, who was not married to the mom, and he doesn't want anything to do with them, you know, until they now have a wealthy guardian that he might want something to do with. But this romance is between the older brother, the uncle of these kids, and her. There's an age gap between them. She's always kind of had a little crush on him. Again, he was a fighter. And what ends up happening is that even though our heroine has like full custody of these kids, the family could try to make a stink about it, but she wants to honor her friend's wishes. Also, she does know she can provide for these kids. She's not trying to just take them away from their family. She's just like, I think she made me their guardian because of what I can, you know, what I can provide. And the grandmother decides not to put up a full stink about it if the brother also moves in with the kids so that he can keep an eye on things. So a very like complex setup of this one. As I said, I'm not going to go full deep on all of these ones, but this one just tore my guts out too. These kids, I think they range from like, there's like 3, 10, and 13 or something. I don't know. Their ages vary pretty greatly. And I know the little one is really little. And this story just, it ripped my guts out because I just saw myself in this woman so much. Sorry, I didn't realize I was going to get emotional about this. Of her being single and wanting kids so much. And then they're just literally thrust into her life. But they're not hers. And so there's this guilt of like, I now have children to love and spoil and help them grow up, but I got them from a death of someone, you know, like just, oh, there's so many complex emotions. And I thought Amy Oliveira handled this so well. And I do have her on my TBR this year to read more of hers. This was just the first one that I'd like listened to because of Must Love Audio. And I gotta tell you, Must Love Audio has got me to try so many new and diverse authors. They actually have a program that they do like grants for audiobooks for BIPOC authors. And I actually have, like those two are the ones I've listened to through that. But there also is another BIPOC author that I discovered because of them as well. And this is Tiffany Patterson. And she has these kind of like dark contemporary. They're kind of, some of them are darker than others. That's the thing. And then she also has some paranormal and like Why Choose books. Now, I haven't read any of those yet, but I know she has some shifter romances that look really good. They really do. I just haven't got to them yet. The ones I've read have been in her Townsend Legacy series. Now, this is a second gen series, as the series title might suggest, but I've read Trust Me, Keep Me, and Love Me in this series. And I guess that there's a series before that's about all the parents, which I was heavily getting from the context of this series. But yeah, there is a whole other series of hers that when I read the backlist of them, I definitely will. But anyway, Trust Me, Keep Me, Love Me. I can't remember which title now corresponds with each one, but one of these is an Asian man, Black woman. One of them are two biracial people in one. One of them is a Black man and a biracial woman. So there's lots of different diversity within these. And let's see, what's an example of one of them? Let's say one of them, I believe it's Love Me, is actually a Friends to Lovers. I'll tell about this one. Oh, I loved this one. Okay. So this one is a Friends to Lovers. And the woman, she has been dating this absolute douche for a long time, and she had like moved in with him, was going to marry him, and finally it breaks. And her friend, who is like their families are friends, very close, and again, I think both of their parents had books in another series, so they're very close to each other. And and he finally decides that he is going to make a run for it. I also love this one has diabetes representation, I believe type 1 that she has, because the way the hero was always watching out for her health, was always like, he gets her like app put on his phone that like tracks her blood sugar from her like pump, and always making sure she's taking care of herself. I just love it. I love it. Okay. I love it so much. It's so good. So much caretaking. She's also an artist. And another layer, she's also the child of a assault. And again, this is a second generation, so I can only imagine what her parents' romance was like, because her father had like adopted her, and she was the child of a rape that happened to her mother. So she deals with a lot of like anxiety and sometimes like harmful thoughts that have to do with that too. But anyway, in this, it's a Friends to Lovers, and after she's broken up with this douchebag, her friend, this guy, finally makes his move, and he asks her to give him a chance. He's like, I can't remember if it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever, but he says, I'm the one for you. I know everything about you. I love you. I've bided my time. I've waited. You've had all these relationships that I thought weren't good for you. Give me a chance. And he's like, she's like, well, if it doesn't work, it'll mess up our families. And he's like, but what if it is perfect? What if we were absolutely meant to be together? Do you want to miss out on this? Because I'm pretty confident. And like, I love that. Okay. He is so determined. He is on top of it. He's like, I'm just ready to sweep you off your feet. I've been waiting. And he thought he wasn't going to have the chance, because this guy, again, like she was engaged to this guy and she wouldn't have messed it up. And yeah, I just love it. Like, her family still gives him kind of a hard time, but they also are like, we thought he'd fucked up, that this wouldn't happen. So I enjoyed this so much. I remember distinctly while I was listening to this book too. Sorry. You know how like some books, the time in your life you're reading them or what you were doing like comes back to you when you think of the book. And I was listening to this one while I was helping my friend ready her classroom for school. And so I was stapling just tons of stuff together. I was stapling for 4 hours, okay? these books together for her kids and everything, and listening to this book and just like squealing. My friend was working on stuff and being like, what is wrong with you? And I'd be like, nothing. And I was just over there squealing the whole time. So adorable. But anyway, so there's that one. There's one that is the heroine is kind of a grifter, and it is with a billionaire. There's a marriage of convenience. And then there's also one of them that is like, he's our stalker. That's the one that's an Asian man, black woman. Or maybe she's biracial. I think she's biracial. I don't know. Either way, it's an Asian man and a biracial woman or a black woman. And she's a reporter and he's a billionaire. And when she was young, like 17, 18, she actually stopped him from committing suicide. I know that seems very strange, but he was having a very bad day that day, and she actually interrupts him from doing that. And she doesn't like remember who he is, but I believe it's like 10 years later, he's now crawling out of the pit he was in. He's made something of himself, and he's been watching her kind of this whole time. And now it's finally time for him to like insert himself back in her life. So he's been kind of her stalker, benevolent stalker type. And he has like inserted himself into her life. And again, since she's a reporter, there's now something that has to do with him and his business that she's looking into. And he uses that as an in. So she writes these books, again, that are kind of right on the edge of dark. They're not like fully heavy with that, but I would consider them morally gray billionaire romance, which most billionaires are a bit morally gray anyway, right? Like we know it. So anyway, those are 3 that I listened to on audio because of Must Love Audio, and they were all very like moving to me. And I want to continue reading more of those authors, and I just want to share them with you because maybe you've never heard of them. Again, I will have links to all of the books I mentioned down below, so definitely go check them out. And don't just check out the specific books I mentioned, like check out all of the author and support them because they deserve it. Okay, I'm going to throw in one of the more popular ones, but it definitely is outside of my normal wheelhouse, so I thought I would include it. And this author doesn't have a ton of books out. They basically have a adult romance trilogy and then a couple novellas. I think there's some older books they'd put out, but I don't even know if they're in print anymore. And they currently have a YA fantasy that is out. But I wanted to mention Fonda Lee, who I discovered last year through my friend Crystal, and she has the Greenbone Saga, which is an Asian-based fantasy that has this magic where you use jade stone for the power, and it's also a bit like Mafia. So I know I'm usually focused on romance in these, and this is not a romance, but there are very significant relationships, not just like romantic ones through this series. It is very much, if you are someone who doesn't have to read romance like I usually do, this was, I joke, my like one non-romance series that I read in 2024. I very much limit how much non-romance I read just for my peace of mind. It's difficult for me to do because I need the promise of that. And the series, I'm just being honest, it will break you, okay? Each book has something that will break you, but particularly Jade Legacy will crumble you to pieces, okay? But some people like to hurt, okay? Now, I don't love to hurt, but I'm willing to hurt for a story this good. And Fonda Lee, with just these 3 books, which, I mean, it's a lot of pages, you know, like this amount of pages I've read from her is about the same as, you know, a whole 7-book series by someone else. But the Call family in here, again, it's a bit like organized crime within this magic community. There's these different families that run it, and they are vying for power. There is a power war that goes on throughout the series. This whole series actually chronicles kind of from the inset of this war through what the consequences will be for the next generation and everything. And Fonda Lee just completely won me over, and she's made a fan for life out of me from this series. I love it so much. So I just wanted to give her a mention in here too, because I was just so impressed. Like, there's just nothing else to say about that. Okay, let's do a couple other smaller ones, and then I have some bigger ones to end us with as well again. So let's talk Taken to Viraxia by Elizabeth Stevens. This is one of the authors that I didn't know until like a year after I'd read one of her books that this was a Black author. She's so beautiful too. Sorry, I normally wouldn't comment on that, but when I first saw a picture of her, I was like, oh my gosh, you are gorgeous. Not that authors aren't all beautiful in their own way, but you know, there are certain like thoughts we get in our head of what people look like, and so when you see them, but oh, she's gorgeous. So these books I first listened to because they were on Audible Plus. I think most of them still are, I don't know, but I'd heard about them from Avery, who reads tons of alien romance, and these ones are one where, oh crap, I don't want to confuse these with the Choosing Theo one. In this one, okay, I believe in the beginning of this one, like humans are not treated very well, and there's this planet where some aliens will come and like basically hunt them, and some humans are treated as slaves. When they're hunted, these humans get like raped by them, like horrible things are happening. And in this one, it's supposed to be a time for one of these hunts, and the king of these people, or one of the planets, finds out what's happening there, and he's very disgusted when he learns what's happening to them. I might be fudging this out. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I've read these ones. I need to catch up. I've read the first 4 of the series, I think, and I think there is like, I don't know, 9 or 10 of them at this point. But they're all different aliens, all different planets. Most of the relationships, as I said, are like human women, alien men. But one of the novellas is actually a human man, alien woman. And yeah, they're all different worlds they travel to. But yeah, Elizabeth Stevens, she writes very unique alien romance. We'll just say that. Sorry that I butchered explaining that. I apologize. I'm so bad, but it's merging together with like Choosing Theo ones, and so, which are the Victoria Evelyn, so I'm messing it up, but definitely check her out if you love alien romance, if you like fated mates. It does kind of sit a little bit darker than some of the other ones, so if you like a bit darker alien romance, I think. Then I want to mention Rebecca Weatherspoon, who has not put out enough recently, if I do say so myself, but she did bring us Megan finally. I don't know whether it's Megan or Megan. To me it's Megan because of how it's spelled, but I apologize. She has the series has Rafe, the buff male nanny, who that is a that is a biracial couple where it's actually a Black female doctor who has twins and she needs a nanny, and so Rafe becomes her male nanny. Then there is Zenny, and that one is this Black woman and this buff Scottish bisexual guy who they have a marriage of convenience. And then there is Zenny, which this one ends up being kind of sort of an escort-esque romance. I mean, I guess it's not because it's more fake dating, but there's also like some sex involved. But this has a billionaire who is actually neurodivergent, and our heroine is a teacher, and I think she needs money, and he needs a fake girlfriend to get the press to stop like shoving women at him, and so they fake date. And once they fake date, like he's very attracted to her, and he shares that, and she explains that she's really into kind of like ethical non-monogamy. She likes to be shared by people. She's into BDSM. She was actually in a long-term like throuple with people where she was the third who was dominated by both of them. Like this one definitely has BDSM involved in it. And I loved this story actually so much. And I wish she wrote more, but she actually also has a series that is like mostly Black characters too. There is an MMF she writes, and she has a lot of like novellas too that are set in, there's like a gym world too, like, sorry, gyms are a fitness world ones too. So she also has some horror ones, I think. So Rebecca Weatherspoon has a very varied history of some of her stories, but I wish she put out more. I wish there was more from her, but she, to me, is like criminally underappreciated, especially if you like some of the things a bit kinkier. But even if you'd like to explore some of that, I think she does it very well, especially the one series, which I can't remember the title of now, but that was one that really did well of like an intro to BDSM, but also not treating you like you're stupid at the same time. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but like, it's an intro to BDSM, some of the harsher stuff, without like tiptoeing you into it, and also without there being sex club in that one series too, which not everybody wants to read. You know, not everybody wants it to be in a sex club, you know. So anyway, I love her stories so much, and I wish we had more of them, is my point. Okay, squeezing someone else in. This author, I feel like definitely isn't underrepresented. I will say that, but I love her stories so much, so I'm going to show her anyway. And I think she has put out some very diverse ones throughout her releasing books. I know her next one is going to be a biracial couple. It's a black woman and is he Russian? It might be like a Russian billionaire. I don't know, but it looks really good. And of course, I'm talking about Huang. So this one has an Asian man and a white woman in Twisted Hate. This one is really hot, really crazy. Josh Chen, I think is his name. Yeah. And he's going to be a doctor, very successful, very sexy. There's King of Sloth. And this one, I believe the hero is Latino, I think. Javier Castillo. And he is a billionaire, and our heroine Sloane is his publicist. The one, King of Envy, is coming, and that's the one that there's a black woman and a billionaire who is, I believe he's mute, so very interested in how that's going to go. But I just mentioned her quickly, but I love Anna Huang, and she's someone I've been reading for, I think, like 4 or so years now, and I just love her. Okay, now I have 2 historical authors for you. So someone I feel like doesn't get enough attention, and who I actually had heard of, but I didn't realize I'd heard of her when I met her at Book Bonanza in 2023, I think is when I met her. And that is Lyanna De la Rosa. So Lyanna De la Rosa also has the books that look like this, Gabriella, and there is these sisters. These ones are being traditionally published, and I haven't read this series yet. But this series by her, the Once Upon a Scandal series, are the ones that I got from her at Book Bonanza. She just had a few left at her table, and there was like no historical romance authors at Book Bonanza. There just wasn't. That's not really what people are looking for. But Lyanna De la Rosa was there, and it was near the end of the signing time, and I just saw her. She only had a few books left, and I was like, you have historical romance? And so she started talking, and then I recognized this other series of like, oh, I've seen you around. I didn't know you had some that were kind of indie. They were with Entangled Publishing, which does some like that. They also, you know, have traditionally published ones too. But this series has some really cool stories in it, but they're mostly the, like, you know, this one is a widowed, penniless, our Charlotte Taylor, who she gets a teaching position, and then Finley, the man she shared a romantic night with, reappears, a specter from her past, and he reignites her passion. So yeah, this is a Viscount Firthwell, and he's the only son of an earl. So yeah, love her stories, and I feel like she doesn't get enough attention, and this is one of the few historical romance authors, I feel like, I know it's not few, but it feels like few, who she currently has some books coming out. So please go check her out, pre-order her upcoming release. I really want to try that series now and put my money where my mouth is. I'll probably grab the audiobooks for them, but definitely check her out. And then to round out my list of BIPOC authors here, I, of course, would be remiss if I didn't mention Stacy Reid, who is not going through a great time right now. She's had a really tough couple of years. It's not my place to share every detail, but if you go follow her Instagram, you'll know. I had the absolute joy to interview Stacy a couple years ago. And, sorry, I'm not like getting emotional there. My throat is doing that. But she just deserves all the attention, in my opinion. I love her story so much. And though she is a BIPOC author who writes predominantly white couples, her romances are some of my favorite I've ever read, and she is Jamaican. I love that about her. And again, she's had some very tough couple of years, losing people in her family, illness. She currently has an illness that not only her chronic illness, but some other issues she's having. And I just pray for her health every day. Truly, I do. She is such a gem and a joyous woman. And to see her going through that is really tough. So that's why I just wanted to highlight her at the end here, because if you love her stories, please go buy some of her books, send her some love, because I don't want her to feel alone in what she's going through, and know that her readers are rooting for her and really care that she makes it through. A couple of my favorite books from her, I'll just say that real quick, is A Matter of Temptation. I love this one. My Darling Duke is a favorite of many. This was my first Stacy read. I think it's a lot of people's. And then, of course, one that was my favorite book in one of my favorites in 2023. Hard to remember back there now. I don't know. But it was When the Earl Met His Match. Absolutely adore this book so much. So there you go. Those are the BIPOC authors and characters that I had to share with you guys today. Make sure you check out some of the other people who are involved in this collab if you want more, because I by no means have a full catalog of these. These are just a few that came to mind that I've been wanting to share. So if you're looking for more authors and authors to support, definitely check them out. And thank you to Hannah for putting this collab together. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.